Hi, welcome back to Matrimony Thoughts with Jack and Glenn. And in this episode, we're going to talk about to have or have not your spouse's last name.
Yes, and before we start this episode, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you follow us on iTunes, YouTube, Google Play, Spotify, where else you get your podcast. And for those who watch us on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the bell notification.
All right, let's get to it. So, we're having this conversation because it came up on an episode of Married at First Sight. Mirla and Gil were talking about taking a last name.
Mm-hmm.
And so it brought us back to our conversation about taking last names when we got married.
Yeah, because I mean, with me, I wanted you to take my last name. I mean, for several reasons. One, I have a great last name, I think. Two, I wanted to make sure my children didn't have a hyphenated last name. That was the last name that we had, because I'm the last person to carry on my family's last name. I'm the last male on that side of the family that can have kids. So I wanted to make sure my children had the correct last name.
Okay.
Not hyphenated name.
So for me, when I was growing up thinking about getting married, I always thought, okay, I'll take my husband's last name. But guys don't do this because they don't have the same issue as females. But for girls, females, ladies, we always think about, okay, how does it flow? How does it flow with my name? Is it going to flow if it's Jackie?
Right.
How does it flow? And so I know for me, like, I dated some guys before that I was like, okay, like, that is so common. Gosh, I don't want to be, for example, no, I better not use no example. I ain't trying to offend nobody. But some last name, all right, yes I can. We'll use Smith.
Yeah. Jackie
Smith. I promise you, if you Google Jackie Smith, you can find 1 million Jackie Smiths. Probably. If you do Johnson, I say Johnson probably too.
They're common last names.
And Davis. I think you're going to find a lot of those last names. So my thinking was, like, when I dated people, I was like, how does Jackie go with this last name? And so when it came to my husband's last name, but that was like, it sounds good with just my name and his last name, but I was like, it could be common. It could be quite common. So my thinking was, I'm a hyphenate. Not so much because I like my maiden name better, but to me it flowed better, it sounded better, and I felt like I wouldn't get a lot of mix up with people with that name.
I mean, I understand that, and I understand that from the woman's perspective, that they wanted to have a good flow, and I think, to me as a guy, I think we always taught, not that you're property or anything of that nature, but we're together, we one, we go biblically, two are one. So we join together. So we join our names and our families together. Nothing against, I'm not saying people who have their name hyphenated don't love their spouse. They do. But I think, relationship is much more than the name when it comes to it. It's just not about the hyphenated or the solid name. It's about us being together and showing unity on the front. Also, as a guy, I'm thinking about, as I mentioned, thinking about the kids. Mm-hmm. You're thinking about, okay, these are the kids' names. When we have children, want our children named to flow, or want our children named to have the same last name as if we're married.
Right.
Not hyphenated. And I understand why people do it, because some of they're connected to their parents, or they don't, like in Marilla's case, her father had passed away, and she wanted to keep that connection together, with him. It doesn't mean you don't have that connection. Right. It just means that your name has changed. And because, again, going back to the history of it, you became part of that person's family. So y'all became one again. And so you came over to them and you took on their last name. So I think there lies some hesitation. And again, older generations, there was not an issue. Mm-hmm. But as we get further along from that generation, I spoke with your cousin a couple weeks ago, and she was like, no, when I get married, I'm not taking my spouse's last name.
Oh, she said not at all?
Not at all.
Oh. See, I think that's what I was going to say about what we're talking about. To me, it's a difference in saying I'm not taking their last name at all, because I never felt like I wouldn't take it. Mm-hmm. But I felt like, again, for me, this is not everybody, I felt like I wanted to sound better and, you know, not to be mixed up with anybody. But it was never an issue for me taking your last name. Like I said, growing up, I always was like, I'm going to take my spouse's last name. So in the hyphenating, just like what you were saying, like I'll give an example. So maybe I shouldn't do. I'm not gonna be specific, but I know somebody that her and her spouse, they got divorced, but they had kids. And so to keep that conformity when it came to the kids, she did hyphenate her last name. Mm-hmm. She didn't keep just his last name, but for her children, because they were still in school. And it can be confusing when you be like, Mickey Smith, and your kids is
Johnson Smith.
or no,
or
I'm not even that. No. If you're Mickey Smith and then your kids are Johnson,
right?
You know, and that's what you were talking about. Because I agree with the being a family unit, and I mean it's 2021. Some people don't care, but I like that my family all have the same last name. Because even if it's hyphenated, we still have the same last name.
We still have the same. You still have the same last name. I think sometimes when you look at it, and there's nothing wrong. We went to school with a lot of people who had hyphenated names, and for whatever reason it was. I think, you know, I give you one, Jackie Joyner Kersey.
Yeah,
you know, it flows.
But I think hers isn't even hyphenated. It's like it took it, which that's one thing we found too, and we know some people like that too. Is they make their maiden name their middle name.
Yeah.
For me, I like my middle name, so I didn't want to. I was not.
But there's different ways you can do it. You can make your middle name your maiden name your middle name, or you can just eliminate it altogether. I know my mother doesn't use her maiden name. You know, in that it's just the name of my father. So some people hyphenate it, but again, I think it's the preference of the person. My point is, it doesn't make you not love the person anymore. Again, it goes back. I think it's a discussion you and your spouse have to have. I don't think as a woman, and y'all can help me out. Leave a comment in the comment section. I don't think as a woman you just, you know what, I'm not taking your last name. Because as a guy, I will feel some type of way.
Right.
I'm not.
It would absolutely have to be a conversation.
Yeah, I think that's the main point. Is there has to be some kind of conversation, because we saw even on Married at First Sight. That stutter for a minute. On Married at First Sight, he had the conversation. He kind of asked, you know, would you take my last name? I want you to take my last name. I'm traditional. It don't, you know. I think the disadvantage that the show has is that they meeting each other for the first time. Mm-hmm. And so that has to be a discussion. If you're traditionally getting married or y'all dating, then it comes up, you know, were we heading to the aisle or we heading to the wedding ceremony? That needs to be a conversation.
Yeah,
beforehand. Because for some people, that's a deal breaker. I mean, it is. That's a solid deal breaker. If you can't take my last name, then I can't marry you.
Oh, wow.
That's a deal breaker for some people.
I don't know. I feel like that shouldn't be a deal breaker.
But for some people feel like, you can't take my last name, you don't love me. If you can't become totally mine, to me, it seems like you still leaving some out there if you can't take my last name. Mm-hmm. And so for some people, not taking the person's last name is like, you know what? I can't be with you because you can't fully. It's like you're not fully committing to the process.
But let's use this for example, because when we made this comment on the Married at First episode, which is true, we see it a lot in music or entertainment. But some people they don't change it at all, not even hyphenated. They don't change it at all because they've established an acting career as Whitney Houston. Mm-hmm. Singing career as Whitney Houston.
Right.
So for you to go Whitney Houston Brown or just Whitney Brown, some people will be like, well, who's Whitney Brown?
Right.
Their name is recognizable. Angela Bassett. Mm-hmm. She didn't change her last name to Courtney B. Vance. She didn't change it to Angela Vance.
Right.
Because they already have an established career. For some people, they're published authors, producers.
Yeah.
Shoot, doctors, lawyers. You already have your career established by this. Your name is recognizable. So that's why they don't change their name. And so in that case, it wouldn't be that I understand somebody feeling that way, but it wouldn't be like, I'm not part of your family. It's just again, it's a conversation. You already know that I've been, cause shoot, some of these people been married been single well into adulthood.
Yeah, and I understand it's a brand. If you have created a brand, and this is your brand, this is how you make your living. This is your brand. Your brand. We'll use Angela Bassett. This is my brand, Angela Bassett. You can do that. I take another example. We go to another route. Kiera Sheard just got married, and she hyphenated her name. But again, people know her as Kiera Sheard.
Well, and with that, think about this. So she basically has a pattern that's set before her too, because her mother is a Clark sister. So that Clark sister is a brand, and so if you look at all of them, Twinkie and Jackie, Dorinda, and Karen, none of them are just there. They are Dorinda Clark Cole, Jackie Clark Chisholm, Karen Clark Sheard. So she already had a pattern set for her. She's got the Clark lineage, but the Sheard name is established too. So I'm gonna keep my Sheard because here's another one. And I mean, I'm sure y'all know some more, but since you brought up gospel singers, like Vicki Winans ain't been more married to a Winans than the Man in the Moon. She ain't been married to a Winans in a long time. Tremaine Hawkins ain't been a Hawkins. She said this on the Stellar. She ain't been a Hawkins for 20-some years. Because her husband but it's a brand and it's recognizable. And in that case, for real, we could hit that real quick. How offended would you be if I'm your new husband? Yeah, you used to be married to somebody famous with that last name, and like you're not trying to turn it loose. Vicki Winans got a son that ain't even a Winans, that goes by Winans. I don't even know if he was actually adopted a Winans. I like to say he was, but I don't know if that's the truth. But he goes by that Winans name because that name carries weight.
Y'all know it's Mario Winans.
Right. I mean, y'all might still not know who it is.
May not know who that is.
But yeah, so
again, it goes back to the name. If the name carries weight and has value and it has money value to it, people are going to keep the name.
But for
some people want to be a okay. We use Winans. Some people want to be a Winans. Some people want to be a Sheard. Some people want to be a Clark.
Or for people that don't know gospel singers, some people want to be a Wayans.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't want to be one of the Wayans family as deep as they are?
Somebody want to be a Combs. Puffy.
Right.
Whatever case may be.
Right.
So somebody again want that last name. Some people want the last name because they see the dollar signs onto it. They look at it. Somebody may want to be O'Neal from Shaq. You know what I'm saying? Oh. So whatever case may be, they want to get that attachment to it so they can say they're connected. Other people care less because they can be in a relationship. So I think taking the name has to be a conversation that you and your spouse have to have. Yeah. I'm not saying hyphenating is wrong. I'm not saying not taking it is wrong. I just know it's a personal preference.
Right.
And so relationship preference, for me, it was, I really wanted you to take the last name because to me, growing up the way I grew up, it's like we together as one.
Oh, yeah.
And even when we got married first, you hyphenated your name and had my name at the end. I wasn't mad, like, oh, by the way, I didn't dwell on it or talk about it every day. You made the decision to change it over fully. Yeah,
and I did that. I'm going to put this in perspective. I changed, and I had to, I promise, your marriage certificate basically stands as your name change.
Right.
When you get married. You don't have to go through all the formalities. But I had hyphenated, so everything I had my name hyphenated. Mm-hmm. So in order to unhyphenate it, I had to go to court and do a name change. But my reason for changing it again, because my reason for doing it is, it's to me it was a common last name, and I found that I was getting mixed up with other people that also had their name hyphenated with part of either my maiden name or my last name. Right. And then, like I said, my Jackie is not my government name, but my government name is not your typical what you would call from Jackie.
Right.
Okay, and so I was getting mixed up from people that spelled their name like me and the lady that acted as the Charlie's Angel. They spelled it like that, or they spelled it the traditional way. And so I'm getting mixed up with people they're different spelling first name, my same last name. Right. So I was like, you know what? Forget it. Let me just go ahead. But like I said, to put in perspective, I did this when my son was 1 or 2. So at that point, we had been married 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
It was after the fact, you know, and mainly because it was issues. I was like, forget it. It's not that serious.
Yeah.
To be hyphenated, but I feel like it wasn't no shot, because this is the other thing. Some people keep it because they want to still be connected, like we were just talking about, with your family, your birth family. Myself, I feel like because I changed my last name, that doesn't mean I'm negating my family, because that's still your bloodline.
Mm-hmm.
That's still your bloodline. And if you do family reunions, you just know. I know for me, I got if it's this last name or that last name or this one, I just know my cousins got different last names. The whole family. Like when I go back to my grandmother and my great grandmother on both sides, I just know it's these names, and that's what usually happens. This might be the main family name, but you got branches off of that.
Yeah.
And so you just know when you meet somebody, like we did that. When you meet somebody, you be like, "What's your family's name?"
What's your family's
so you make
name?
sure you're not related to them.
Yeah, we almost hit that twice.
You make sure you're not related to them. I throw one out there. So we had one last name that was common, that we knew that was common between two of us. It was Reed.
Yes.
So on my father's side, I have some Reeds.
And on my grandmother's side, I have some Reeds.
And I was like, how you spell that Reed? Because, you know, it's different Reeds. You got R-E-E-D or R-E-I-D.
Right.
And both of ours was R-E-I-D. I was like, oh, snap. But when we looked at it, I was like, well, my family's not here and yours not there. So it's safe to say. But
I can say a lot. At that point, even if we were related,
but that was early on.
we were still getting married.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm sorry.
But that was early on though.
Yeah.
That was early on. But then we found out a few years ago. So my sister lives in a neighborhood with streets with people's names.
Yeah.
And so we were driving down this one street, and I was like, "Oh, this is my family name." And he looks at me like we like 15 years in at this point.
I got some names.
10, 15
I got some people in my family
he
for
was
that
like,
name too.
And this name is very unique.
Yeah.
It's very unique. And I was like, oh, no. But my family with that family name were not in the same area as his. And the other thing is, which I don't want to get off the topic too much. The other thing is, when it comes to African Americans, a lot of times the last names we have were based on the plantation or the slave master.
Yeah.
So they didn't have any last names. So based on that, guaranteed you probably not related, because plantations was everywhere.
Everywhere. So I mean, again,
or they may have been family split up, and you don't know if that's your family or not.
You don't know.
It's hard to trace.
As I mentioned, 15 years in, dog, it is what it is at this point. 15 at that time, 15 years in, and was what, 2 kids, 3 kids at 15 years in?
Yeah, 3 kids with 5 pregnancies.
Yeah, 3 kids.
We had 2 losses.
Yes. So that time in, so at that point, it didn't even make a difference. But again, I think it goes back to most of these things is a conversation that couples have. And I think when we talk about communication in relationships, that is a key aspect of relationship. I need to know if you're traditional. I need to know if you're modern. I need to know if you're gonna take my last name and you're not gonna take my last name. I need to know if you're gonna hyphenate. Matter of fact, I need to know, how do you feel if I don't take your last name? But we've seen this on Married at First Sight. A lot of times, some people are like, no, I'm not doing it, or they really feel strongly some type of way about it. And so that conversation has to happen. And again, as I mentioned, it's a deal breaker for some people. And some people go into relationships, you know what? I don't want your last name regardless. I love you to life. But I don't want your last name. I don't want to be at the end of the alphabet. I don't want my kids to be the last kid to graduate.
That was my other thing too.
But again, those are
I moved down in the alphabet.
Those are preferences. So, those are those things that, again, conversations that need to take place while you're dating, as you're going into counseling. And if you feel some type of way about it, express yourself in an adult-like manner and have that conversation about it. And make sure that it's something that you guys want to do. You don't want to sit 5 years in and be like, dang, I shouldn't have took your last name.
Right.
Oh, dang.
Because at 5 years in, a joker gonna be bitter. Like, hold on, what you trying to say?
Right. Or it goes this, like we mentioned earlier, if you're not famous and y'all divorced, you figure, sometimes if you divorce me, I need my name back. There's some people like, I need my name back. But again, if you establish a brand and you've created that, keep the name. But again, the conversation has to take place. Hey, let us know what you think.
I want to share this real quick because we found a good article about this for why people choose to or don't.
Yeah.
And so this is on from BBC.com. It says the first motivator for why people continue to take a last name is a patriarchal tradition and power. So it goes back to the history again when you leave your father's house and you go to your husband's house. You become part of that family.
Yes.
It's more to that. We don't want to get into the other part of it, like when they do dowries and stuff and property and all like that. That's messy because I don't agree with doing it for that reason either. But it's
because she's not my property. She's my helpmeet. We work together.
Yes.
So
it comes from patriarchal power. But the other reason, the second one was the ideal of a good family or togetherness. It says the sense that having the same name as your partner symbolizes commitment. And this ties you and any potential children together as a unit. So I think that's probably where most people are coming from. Of course, it's probably both. You do it out of tradition, but also your main reason is it symbolizes us as a unit. You could be such and such crew, such and such team. We this deep on this your last name team.
And again, it brings that unity in, and I think that's the key point in family unity, that you have unity, that you show togetherness, and that you show love. And I think that shows the oneness. Again, the oneness of you and me and you and the kids when we eventually have children. That is one, because you have some families that they're together, but they have a kid out of another relationship, and they change their kid's name to the new relationship that they're in. You know. And everyone's on the same page. I think about I believe it was Eva, right? For Atlanta Housewives, that he he adopted the son, and they changed his last the daughter, and they changed the last name.
But hers is which is why some people definitely choose to take their spouse's last name, is that they want to get from the negative history related to that last name.
Right.
Or an abusive situation. Or the fact that they don't like their family. That is why they in particular want to change their last name. Just as we said in contrast is some people don't want to change it because there is so much history and goodness and weight with that last name. You do have some people that want to escape. And so in that case, she did. She changed because that was her daughter's dad at this point, because the relationship with the other dad was non-existent.
So you have those situations. So again, communicate, have a conversation, make sure it's what you guys want to do in the relationship. Either way, hyphenate it or change it completely. Or not. Make sure you and your spouse are on the same page, so it doesn't become a contention in a relationship later on. Absolutely. Hey, before we leave, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Once again, for those on YouTube, make sure you hit that bell notification. For those who listen to us on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, make sure you subscribe to this podcast. We're starting back up, so we're going to send out more content on Matrimony Thoughts. Sorry that we've been away for a long time. We focused a lot of our attention on YouTube, and now we're thinking it's about time for us to bring our back to the podcast world. So we're going to bring Matrimony Thoughts back each and every week with new topics and new discussions for you. So leave a comment in the comment section below. Make sure you leave us a 5-star review on iTunes and Google Play. And once again, thank you for joining us. Hey, we appreciate you.
Bye.
Bye.